Ang masabi ko, ma'am, is actually kung yung protocol sa bahay hindi nasusunod dyan, in a scale of 1 to 10, you may have a compliance of only about 4. Hindi talaga nasusunod yan. At least naintindihan ninyo kung bakit mga may there are officials in government which are taking the other view or the extreme measure or would want to paddle in the middle of the river. Maintindihan na ninyo ngayon at least kung bakit. So nakikita niya na maliit na yung pera. Yung ibang sakit siguro pwede pa yung mga rabies dyan. Pero ito talagang, as you have said, it's dapo dito, dapo doon. And then you have the exponential problem now of how to take care of the Filipinos.
Health experts are pushing for a shorter quarantine period for returning OFWs from 14 days to just 10 days. But for President Duterte, there's no compromise on relaxing protocols for balikbayans. Typhoon Bising weakens further, but at least 3 areas are still under signal number 1. The organizer of the Maginhawa Community Pantry cries foul after NTF-LCAC spokesperson Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade compared her to Satan. And we'll give you a sneak peek into Smart's latest collaboration with Grammy-nominated artists BTS. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. DOH Technical Advisory Group member Dr. Edsel Salvana is proposing to shorten the quarantine period for returning OFWs from 14 days to 10 days. By strictly following the 10-day quarantine requirement, Salvana says the government can do away with mandatory testing as long as an OFW remains asymptomatic for the duration of his quarantine. This is Salvana's response to Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello's concern that the budget for OFW isolation facilities are dwindling fast. Salvana also pointed out that the 5th-day testing requirement is also problematic since the virus could still be in incubation stage during this time.
So there are 2 options that we are talking about. One is strict facility quarantine and selective testing. So we want everyone to get isolated for 10 days, but you can optional po yung 7th-day testing. Kahit walang testing, pag nakumpleto yung 10 days and walang symptoms, we can release them po.
Meanwhile, Dr. Cynthia Palmes Saloma of the Philippine Genome Center stressed the importance of enforcing strict quarantine measures for returning residents. She said the ideal duration is 14 days, though other countries extend that to 21 days just to be sure. She also said that a strict 10-day quarantine should work, but cautioned against the possible spread of more infectious variants with the loosening of quarantine rules.
Based on genomic sequences, may isa lang na makalusot. May isa lang na makalusot. Manganak siya ng marami. If you see the genetic tree po ng virus, may isa lang makalusot, 5. Ang 5 na manganak, yours, alam na naman, President. Kung iuwi natin sila sa mga bahay, alam mo naman tayo mga Pilipino, exuberant. Ang hirap talaga, mag-chat-chat talaga sa neighbor, mga kapatid, mga kaibigan.
More members of the DOH's Technical Advisory Group also spoke to the President regarding the proposition to reduce quarantine rules for OFWs. Dr. Marisa Alejandrina explained that COVID-19 patients are mostly infectious during their first week. That's why they believe that the quarantine period should not go below 7 days for as long as the individual is asymptomatic and strictly monitored.
We can reduce the quarantine period to 10 days, from 14 days without testing, and the residual transmission risk is just about 1%, can go down to 0.1 to 10%. So yun yung parang compromise, or it's a good compromise in the sense that we reduce the duration of the period of quarantine, with minimal effect on the number of infections that we may miss out.
Dr. Anna Ong Lim also recommends a review of the testing protocol for arriving Filipinos. But if we really want to secure our borders, the expert says the government should focus on implementing the strict quarantine.
Yung testing can actually be something that we will forgo kung mai-implement po natin yung 10 araw at kung ano man po yung mga savings na ma-generate dahil hindi na po tayo magte-test, pwede naman po sigurong maipasok naman doon po sa ating quarantine program.
However, these lengthy explanations seem to have fallen on deaf ears. This comes after President Rodrigo Duterte rejected the plea to relax quarantine and testing rules for overseas Filipino workers. During last night's address, Duterte argued that most Filipinos do not follow quarantine protocols even at home. That's why he says that he's not quite comfortable with this proposal.
It is clear that really the medical guys would really go for the strictest measure. As a matter of fact, they are not, from what I sense, is that they are not ready to move an inch backward. I must also be convinced that it is really medyo I'm quite not comfortable with the relaxation that it's being brought about, being bruited now.
Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello also supported the relaxation of quarantine rules for OFWs. Bello said that the positivity rate for returning overseas Filipinos has already dropped to 1.5%. The Secretary also reported on the heavy burden the policy places on government resources. But the Chief Executive has already made up his mind.
I cannot compromise. There is no compromise here. Hindi ako magko-compromise. So, just an off-the-cuff statement before we make the final decision here. I cannot, I am not ready for a compromise here. About lalo na ngayon.
Typhoon Bising continues to affect parts of eastern Luzon as of this morning. Several areas are still under tropical cyclone wind signal number 1. These include Batanes, the eastern portion of Cagayan, including the Babuyan Islands, and the northeastern portion of Isabela. Typhoon Bising has slightly weakened as it moves further away from the Luzon landmass. To give us more updates, we have Anna Loren joining us on the line from the Pag-asa Weather Forecasting Center. Good morning, Anna. Could you tell us where Typhoon Bising is currently at?
Yes, good morning, Sir Charles. As of 4 a.m. today, Typhoon Bising was estimated at around 350 kilometers east of Calayan, Cagayan.
Right, Anna, are we still expecting Bising to exit the PAR over the weekend?
Yes, it is expected, or the Typhoon Bising is expected to exit our area of responsibility by Sunday.
Right, so as of now, how long do you think this will affect the weather conditions over parts of northeastern Luzon?
Yes, within the next 24 hours, it is expected to affect the northeastern portion of Luzon, but also tomorrow, we are expecting a gradual improvement of weather condition over the whole archipelago.
Right, so the weather is going to be okay for the rest of the country for the next few days, I suppose. But then, are you looking at anything else that might be entering the PAR within the next week?
Sir Charles, as of the moment, we're not monitoring any weather disturbance that may affect the country in the next 3 to 5 days.
All right, thank you for those updates, Anna. That was Pag-asa weather forecaster Anna Loren. The names Parlade and Satan are still trending on local Twitter. This as netizens expressed shock and anger at the NTF-LCAC spokesperson drawing parallels between Maginhawa Community Pantry organizer Patreng Non and Satan himself. In an interview with One News' The Chiefs, Parlade was asked why the government seems to have been thrown into a frenzy by one woman whose only intention was to help her neighbors. In response, Parlade went way beyond red tagging and referenced biblical times just to say that we shouldn't downplay what one person is capable of doing.
Alam mo ba, isang tao lang yan, di ba? Isang tao lang, si Ana, si Patricia, di ba? Same with Satan. Si Satan, binigyan ng apple si Eve. Doon lang nagsimula yon.
Patreng Non took offense at Parlade's biblical jab. Ridiculous as it may seem, Non said such remarks could be dangerous not just for her, but everyone who committed themselves to organizing community pantries. Marian Enriquez has the report.
With still a few hours before the Maginhawa Community Pantry reopens after its one-day closure, the Quezon City Task Force Disciplina has started patrolling the street as early as 3 a.m. Their task, support and monitor the implementation of health protocols. When the clock struck 5 a.m., the end of the curfew, residents were allowed to queue, including former jeepney driver Ferdy Caligayan.
Yung makukuha ko rito sa community pantry, malaking tulong ho ito kasi magagamit namin sa isang araw.
Lola Alicia Azarte fell in line at 10 a.m. for the second batch of distribution. She only earns 300 to 400 pesos a day from selling sampagita.
Yung nakukuha ko rito, pagkain na lang namin. Ang kita ko sa sampagita, pambili ng gamot.
This is the 7th day since the Maginhawa Community Pantry began. But while the act of kindness continues, founder Ana Patricia Non, or Patreng, remains anxious about potential threats. Non said the police asked for her contact details.
Ano po ba naman yung threats na yun? Pagkain lang naman po, kangkong lang po hawak ko dito.
She also denounced NTF Alcac spokesperson Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade's threats in his interview with One News The Chiefs on Tuesday night.
We are acting like this.
Ako, wala naman po ako tinatago. Ayun. Tapos po pero serious din po yung mga paratang na yun na hindi din dapat tinitake as a joke. Ang pinaka naapektuhan, hindi ako. Ang naapektuhan po nila yung hundreds na pumila. So isipin na lang nila kung itutuloy po nila yung mga ganyang statement, ilang pamilya yung walang iuuwi sa bahay nila. Ilang pamilya yung gusto po nila magutom.
Non also took offense when Parlade used the analogy of the serpent in the creation story to cast doubts on the motivation behind community pantries.
Huwag naman po ganun kasi kawawa po yung mga taong tumulong sa likod nito.
Meanwhile, National Union of People's Lawyers Chairman Nery Colmenares personally visited Patreng to give legal advice.
Basta ang warning sa mga pulis, wala kayong legitimate reasons to get the data and the information, therefore huwag niyong gawin. Yan ay violation ng Data Privacy Act at violation ng napakaraming batas sa coercion.
In the end, Non stressed that whatever the impact of community pantries, it provides the hope we need in these hopeless times. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
BTS expressed how much they miss the Filipino Army, making local fans even more excited about the launch of Smart's campaign with the Grammy-nominated septet. MJ Marfori has the rest of the story.
A day before the launch of Smart's much-anticipated campaign with BTS, PLDT Smart Chairman Manny Pangilinan on Twitter uploaded a 2-minute teaser. In the video, BTS expressed how much they miss the Pinoy Army.
이 긴 겨울이 끝나면 곧 만났으면 좋겠고요. 정말 많이 보고 싶습니다.
Speaking about their campaign, Jin said their rise to stardom can be attributed to their smart choices.
모두 행복하시길 바랍니다. 행복길만 걷도록 저희가 응원해드리도록 하겠습니다.
For J-Hope, it's important to know one's purpose to have a meaningful life.
네. 너무나도 간단한 사실은 목적이 있으면 삶의 이유가 생기고 원동력이 됩니다, 여러분들.
The 7 piece encouraged everybody to live a smart life in the future.
네, 그리고 우리 아미들, 우리 스마트 회원 여러분들, 이렇게 스마트 함께 하게 되어서 너무 기쁘고 스마트처럼 스마트하게 앞으로 여러분들의 삶도 스마트한 삶이 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later at 10 a.m. as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.